Dear listener, have you ever been completely fooled? Not just a little prank, but a grand illusion that made you question everything you thought was real? Imagine deception on a scale so massive, so audacious, that it altered the course of a world war. A war fought not just with bullets and bombs, but with rubber, paint, and sound. Today, we're peeling back the layers of one of history's most extraordinary secrets, the story of the Ghost Army, and how a handful of artists, actors, and engineers pulled off the greatest bluff of World War II. If you're as fascinated by untold stories as I am, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to give this video a like. It truly helps us bring more hidden histories to light. I remember it like it was yesterday, though the years have blurred some of the sharper edges of fear. It was the summer of 1944, and the air was thick with the scent of anticipation and dread. I was just a farm boy from Ohio, shipping crates full of rubber bits and canvas from some anonymous warehouse, directed by men with an unnerving gleam in their eyes. We were told it was for classified military equipment, but the lightweight bundles and the sheer volume of air pumps arriving daily told a different story. I was part of the 332nd Signal Service Company, or so my paper said. But really, we were the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a unit whose very existence was a paradox. We were an army, but we rarely fought. We were soldiers, but our weapons were illusions. The problem, as I gradually came to understand, was colossal. After D-Day, the Allies faced the unenviable task of pushing through heavily fortified German lines bristling with battle-hardened troops and deadly panzer divisions. Every inch of ground would be paid for in blood. To break through, we needed an edge, a way to thin out those formidable defenses, to make the enemy look where we weren't. The generals, in their far-off war rooms, hatched a plan so audacious it bordered on madness: create phantom armies. And that's where we came in. My first encounter with our true equipment was a deflated mass of rubber, lying limp and lifeless on the ground. It looked like a giant, discarded balloon. Then, with a hiss of air and a few strong hands, it began to swell, taking on form and substance. A tank. Not a real tank, of course. This one was made of rubber and canvas, weighing barely 100 pounds. From a distance, even from the air, it looked utterly convincing. A few strategically placed dirt tracks, some camouflage netting, and suddenly, a quiet field was transformed into a bustling tank park. It was like a magician's trick, but the stakes were unimaginably high. Thousands of lives balanced on the success of these illusions. I often think about the psychological game we played. We were fighting a war of perception. The enemy's intelligence was excellent, but we aimed to overwhelm it, to feed it so much plausible, yet false, information that they couldn't tell fact from fiction. We were essentially hacking their reality. Our training began in secret, first in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and then in the English countryside. We learned how to inflate and deflate our rubber military park, how to set up dummy convoys with minimal men and vehicles, creating the appearance of endless lines of troops on the move. We learned the precise angles and lighting needed to make painted canvas look like solid steel, and we learned to keep our mouths shut. We were the best-kept secret of the war, and our lives, and the lives of actual frontline soldiers, depended on our silence. I remember one night practicing sonic deception. It was late, pitch black, and utterly quiet across the English fields. Then, suddenly, the deafening roar of tanks began to emanate from enormous speakers mounted on trucks. It wasn't just tank tracks, it was the grinding of gears, the shouts of commanders, the distant thump of artillery. It was so real, so vivid, that I instinctively ducked for cover. Our own illusion nearly fooled me. That's when I truly understood the power of what we were doing. If it could convince May, who knew it was fake, imagine what it would do to a sleep-deprived German listening post miles away. Our real operations began after D-Day, once we landed in France. We were always on the move, a traveling roadshow of deception, staging our illusions just behind the front lines, creating diversions for actual combat units. Our first major act was in August 1944, near Brest. The 6th Armored Division was there, but we made the Germans believe an entire 2nd Division was also preparing to attack, drawing their attention and artillery fire away from the real forces. It worked. Brest fell. We weren't firing a single shot, but we were saving lives. The sheer audacity of it all was exhilarating and terrifying. We often operated perilously close to the actual fighting. We were not armed with rifles, but with paintbrushes and deflated balloons. Yet, we faced the same threats as any soldier: artillery, snipers, ground patrols. It was a bizarre existence, living a double life within a war zone. We were essentially bait, drawing enemy fire, but with the hope that our bait would save countless others from facing that same fire. One time, near the Siegfried Line, we were impersonating an entire infantry division. It was cold, rainy, and we were setting up inflatable trucks and jeeps in the mud. Suddenly, a German reconnaissance plane flew directly overhead, low and slow. We all froze, looking up, knowing that our entire existence, our secret, was hanging in the balance. The plane circled once, then twice, before banking away. We held our breath, waiting for the inevitable shell fire. It never came. They bought it. Those deflated pieces of rubber, now puffed up and strategically placed, had fooled them completely. We heard later from intercepted German communications that they reported an unusual concentration of forces in our area. It was a small victory, but it meant our deception had held, and thousands of real American infantrymen were safe that night, moving into position elsewhere. What many people don't realize is the toll it took on us, the men of the Ghost Army. We lived under a shroud of absolute secrecy. We couldn't tell our families, our friends, anyone what we truly did. For decades after the war, we carried that secret, unable to share the most profound and bizarre experience of our lives. It created a unique bond among us, a shared understanding that no one else could possibly grasp. It was lonely, but it was also a source of quiet pride. We had fought a different kind of battle, and we had won. But I still vividly recall our most pivotal performance, the one that truly sealed our legend, though we couldn't speak of it for another 50 years. It was March 1945, the final push into Germany, leading up to the crossing of the Rhine River. This was a critical moment. The Rhine was Germany's last major natural defense. Field Marshal Montgomery was planning the main Allied crossing, Operation Plunder, near Wesel. Our mission? To convince the Germans that the crossing was happening actual target, near the town of Rheinberg. We became the 9th and 79th Infantry Divisions. For days, we deployed hundreds of our inflatable tanks, vehicles, and artillery pieces across a wide front near Rheinberg. We played non-stop sound recordings of troops, heavy equipment, and pontoon bridges being assembled. Our radio operators worked tirelessly, sending out torrents of fake radio traffic, mimicking the real units down to their unique Morse code fists. We even had our actors mingling in nearby towns, dropping hints and rumors about the imminent crossing at Rheinberg. It was a full-blown symphony of deception. Imagine the German intelligence officers poring over their maps, listening to our ceaseless radio chatter, seeing what appeared to be 2 full U.S. divisions forming up for a river assault. They shifted their precious panzer divisions, their artillery, their entire defensive strategy to meet this perceived threat at Rheinberg. But while they were preparing for battle against a phantom, Montgomery's real forces crossed the Rhine relatively easily, facing far less resistance than anticipated. It was a stunning success, and it saved thousands of Allied lives. The Ghost Army's success was measured not in territory gained, but in confusion sown and lives saved. The deceptions we created undoubtedly drew critical German forces away from where the real fighting was happening, making the path easier for our comrades. Our story remained classified for over 40 years, an incredibly long time, which tells you just how valuable and effective our methods were. They didn't want the enemy, or future enemies, to know how we did it. The Ghost Army reminds us that courage takes many forms. It's not always about charging the front lines with a rifle. Sometimes it's about wielding a paintbrush, or inflating a rubber tank, or mimicking a radio signal. It's about ingenuity, creativity, and the power of the human mind to outwit and outmaneuver. These were the weapons of the Ghost Army, and they proved to be just as decisive as any bomb or bullet. More importantly, it's a powerful reminder that history is not just about grand battles and famous generals. It's also about the incredible, often unconventional, human stories that unfold within them. It's about the quiet heroes, the unsung artists, the forgotten sound engineers who used their unique talents to change the course of destiny. If you found this incredible story as fascinating as I did, and you want to dive deeper into the hidden corners of history, then please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button to help us reach more curious minds like yours, and share this video with anyone you think would appreciate this truly unique tale. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. What other hidden stories from history do you know? Or perhaps, how do you think creativity can impact conflict or change the world? Let me know in the comments below. We're building a community of history explorers here, and your thoughts enrich every discussion. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep exploring the past to understand our present.